Satellite images showed the dam in the Kherson region of Ukraine before and after an alleged explosion unleashing a torrent of water, with both sides accusing the other of sabotage without providing evidence.
We have all seen the tragic images coming out today of the monumental humanitarian, economic and ecological catastrophe in the Kherson region of Ukraine. The United Nations has no access to independent information on the circumstances that led to the destruction of the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant dam. But one thing is clear. This is another devastating consequence of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And we are seeing the effects in the city of Kherson, the town of Nova Kakhovka, and 80 other towns and villages along the Dnipro River. Massive flooding, large-scale evacuations, environmental devastation, destruction of newly planted crops.
Guterres said more than 16,000 people had already lost their homes, with safe and clean drinking water supplies at risk for many thousands more.
The United Nations and the humanitarian partners are rushing support in coordination with the government of Ukraine, including drinking water and the water purification tablets and other critical assistance. We will continue our humanitarian work and our appeals for urgent, safe and secure humanitarian access. Today's tragedy is yet another example of the horrific price of war on people. The floodgates of suffering have been overflowing for more than a year, and that must stop. Attacks against civilians and critical civilian infrastructure must stop. And we must act to ensure accountability and respect for international humanitarian law.
The dam's reservoir also supplies water to the Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed by Russia in 2014, and Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, also controlled by Russia, that uses water from the dam to cool its reactors.
The civilian population and the environment downstream of the Dnipro River are already suffering tremendous damage as a result of floods. President Zelensky immediately convened the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. Ukrainian law enforcement and emergency services are working hard to mitigate the consequences and save lives. Ukraine calls an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council and brings the issue of the Russian Terrorist Act to the International Atomic Energy Agency's Board of Governors.
Aiming to prevent the offensive operations by the Russian army on this section of the front line, the Kiev regime committed an act of sabotage, or rather a terrorist act. It led to the flooding of substantial territories and would have dire and long-lasting environmental consequences.
This latest humanitarian disaster, with vast consequences on the civilian population, comes as Ukraine is widely reported to be launching a long-awaited counteroffensive to drive Russian forces from its territory. Shervin Bryceby's SABC News, New York.